need to talk about In Touch Foundation and the work that we do, but before that, I want to talk a little bit about what we mean when we say homelessness. When we're talking about homelessness, we're not talking about something that's abstract. This is something that we see every day on the streets that when we're up and about. Probably on the way to Bradford, on the way in, you've probably seen a lot of people that are struggling, a lot of people that I need support ultimately. And actually, we're talking about our neighbours, we're talking about our community, and we're talking about our people. These aren't random people, these are people that are part of our community. Sorry, is that better? Thank you. And also, homelessness itself isn't as a result of one event. It's caused by a combination of pressures, it's caused by rising living costs, it's caused by insecure housing, ill health, trauma, our relationship breakdown. The reality is a lot of us, or probably all of us in this room, are only a few paychecks away from being like the people that we see on these streets and the people that we're talking about right now. And also, homelessness is also about, or poverty in general, it's about the loss of safety, loss of belonging. And it's also, again, about that loss of community. Now, what In Touch Foundation are here to do, and what we've been doing for the last 13 years, is not only actually working directly with people experiencing homelessness or poverty or food insecurity, it's about meeting people where they are. It's about helping people, it's about working with people rather than for people, because like I said, it is about our community. Now through the mobile, we started off with a mobile kitchen and outreach work, but what's happened now is we have a regular food kitchen that takes place every single Tuesday from 6 till 8, rain or shine, volunteers are there. No.
Sound gone. Sounds. Hello? Hello?
Carry on, yeah. Yeah, yeah, probably a bit too high. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Do you want me to start again? Yeah. Right. Carry on. So which one shall I do? Where should we go? Carry on. Carry on. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. You've all spoken. So, as I was saying about In Touch Foundation, what we do as part of In Touch Foundation is about meeting people where they are. It's not only about supporting homelessness, it's not only about supporting people, it's about supporting our community, and it's about coming together to provide that wraparound support. One of the great things that I find about In Touch Foundation is we're all volunteers. No one, including our CEO, who just sat right there, is paid for the work that we do. We come together in Bradford, across Yorkshire, at times internationally as well, to be there for our community and be the change that we want to see. We have a regular food kitchen that takes place every week, and the fascinating thing about our food kitchen is when we first started out a few years ago, when I started on 8 years ago, we normally saw single people and more so people from the white ethnic background. What I'm seeing at the moment and what we're seeing quite recently is there's a lot more diversity in terms of people that are coming up to our door, but there's also a lot more families. Families, you see younger children coming in with their parents, with their family members, with their communities, reaching out, wanting that hot meal. And not only the hot meal, what we're also finding is hygiene itself is a big issue, hygiene products. A lot of people come and tell us how it's not only now that they're struggling to find food, they're struggling to deal with the necessities. How do we choose between heating, because it is freezing at the moment, and deodorant, or wipes, or hot water? How do we deal with all of that? So what our In Touch Foundation provides is that safe space to have a hot meal, to be met with a smile, to be met with other people within the community from a diverse range of background, diverse ages, and having all your needs met where we can. And it's going above the food poverty, and it's going into the compassion, it's going into the energy, and it's going into supporting our communities. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mazira. Just a bit of an announcement. Some car registration LD2DFGV is blocking someone in the car park, so someone could move that, that'd be great. So our next speaker, we've been asked to speak from up here if you could. Sorry about that. Next speaker's Dennis White, who's speaking in a personal capacity, but he's a teacher and an official with the National Education Union. Hand you over to Dennis.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's an honour, really, to speak at a rally for your party. I've worked in schools in Bradford for over 30 years, and I have been a trade union activist. And I want to speak a little bit about the crisis that is taking place in our schools. We have a year-on-year funding crisis in schools. Bradford schools have seen real terms cuts in their budgets of £74 million since 2010. My own school, which is just down the road, has seen real term cuts of £3.7 million. And if that funding was restored to 2010 levels, we could see 28 new teachers in our school, 36 support staff, 1,200 new laptops. But the last government budget set a grim picture with no extra money allocated for schools and the promise of more pay cuts and longer hours for teachers. This means bigger class sizes, school buildings in need of repairs, support staff being made redundant, and children with special educational needs not getting the support they so badly need. Poverty continues to be an issue in schools. It's true that the lifting of the two-child benefit cap was positive, but in Bradford, as we know, we've seen a 10% increase in council tax, which must have had a big impact on households. In the UK today, 31% of children are trapped in poverty. That's 4.1 million children. In Bradford, that percentage is certain to be much higher. Poverty means that children come to school cold and hungry, and that is no way to learn. Finally, we have an ultra-competitive education system with high-stakes testing at its centre at all levels of schooling. And this creates spiralling workloads for teachers and more stress for children. It contributes to a growing mental health crisis in our schools. In the year 2024, mental health referrals for children and young people stood at a record high of 949,000. Therefore, given all that I've said, it's no surprise that we do have a shortage of teachers. 30% of teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years, and we're failing to attract new entrants into the profession. So the NEU is building a campaign to stop the destruction of our education system. We will need to take whatever action is necessary because we cannot continue as we are. If there is money for hypersonic missiles, there should be money for schools. It was heartening to see the junior doctors take strike action in December. We need to see more of that. When one of the strikers was asked, what do you think of the fact that all the appointments and operations are being cancelled? They responded, this happens all the time when we are at work because there aren't enough doctors to cover these things. And we are routinely dealing with patients in the corridors because there are not enough beds. So our public services are crumbling. There is a shortage of affordable housing. Unemployment is increasing and pay is falling in real terms. And yet, Keir Starmer scapegoats and attacks vulnerable in our society. Look at what they've done to refugees and migrants, for example. This is why we're seeing the rise of the far right and Nigel Farage topping the polls. Now, Nigel Farage doesn't like the NEU. I'm not sure if you know that. He said that the NEU brainwashes children, and he promised he would go to war with the NEU when he achieves power. Being attacked by Nigel Farage is no bad thing, actually, in my book. Actually, I think it's a badge of honour. But I think the best response to his threats is for trade unionists to organise the biggest turnout for the 28th of March demonstration in London, together against the far right. We need to flood the streets with trade union banners and people who reject the politics of hate, racism and division. I am very proud that the NEU has been a leading organisation involved in Together Against the Far Right. And I hope that there is a big presence of your party, a big and visible presence of your party supporters on that march too. Your party must be at the heart of protests, strikes and demonstrations, because we need to do politics differently as we live in uncertain times. In one way or another, all the other political parties end up serving a broken system. It's a system that is run in the interests of the richest and most powerful in our society. It's a system that is run in the interests of profit instead of people. And we should not aim to serve that system, but to disrupt it, because we want to break from that system. And in order to break from that system, we need to encourage and give confidence to all of those fighting back, whether that's in solidarity with Palestine or in defense of our public services. The bigger our collective resistance, the more that we can start to believe that change is possible. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Our keynote speakers are just going to come and sit on the stage now. So, oh, they're not. Okay. So, I'll have Carol, who's going to introduce the next speaker.
Thanks, Dennis, for all that information about schools. In Bradford, the Trades Council and Unite Community have been collecting signatures for free school meals for children, and we've collected over 500 signatures that have all fed into the National Education Union's campaign. So people have been very happy to sign that. So our next speakers are the independent group of councillors. We've got Talat Sajwal, who's the leader of the independent group, and we've got Ismail Uddin and Mohammed Ali Islam, who are the two youngest councillors in the country.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming today. And I mean, it's an absolute honour to be here on a stage with Jeremy Corbyn and your party. We are the Your Bradford Independence Group in Bradford. I've been a councillor for the last 10 years. I started off on my own all them years ago, but now, thankfully, we are growing in numbers in City Hall in Bradford to challenge this incompetent Labour Council and challenge their decisions that they are making for the people of Bradford. And we want to change politics just like your party does. We want to change politics so it works for the working people. Because the Labour Party was created here in Bradford by Labour workers. But that value has faded away. Labour now represents the billionaires, the big corporations. It's gone away from the values that it was founded on, and that was the working class. And that's what's being left behind. So we want to challenge this in Bradford. And we are, like I said, we're growing in numbers. Next year, we have an all-out election where every councillor will be standing again to challenge their seat. And we want everybody, we want all the left, the social workers, everybody to unite. Unite against this, and let's get Labour out of Bradford Council. We need them out of Bradford Council because their decisions are impacting on everybody's daily life. Last year, to have a council tax rise of 9.99% and to say it's a one-off was a complete lie, because that one-off is continuing to be added on every year to everybody's council tax. So we need to continue to challenge this. We have grown in numbers with 9 independent councillors. Next year, we're hoping to increase that number. But we can only do that if we all unite behind your Bradford Independence Group. And I would urge everybody and anybody to come forward and join your Bradford Independence Group, because we want to move Bradford forward in a positive way. We want it to impact, we want politics to impact the public in a positive light. So the working class person is not forgotten. And everybody that lives in Bradford feels the benefits of the Labour Council being challenged. And we want, they said Labour was created here in Bradford. Next year, let's make it the year Labour was defeated in Bradford. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. First of all, I've come a little bit late. I'm a little bit confused. Where is my man Corbyn? Is he here today, right? Just to confirm, he's here. Fantastic, cool. Just making sure. They want to come to an empty house. Before we start, I want to take you back to a quick moment. 24th of June 2017. Does anyone recollect this date? Does anyone remember this date? This was the Glastonbury Festival. And thousands of people were in attendance. And a young man walked onto that stage. He was calm, he was principled, he was unshaken. And since then, he spread a message that many people, unfortunately, no longer have, and it's that message of hope. And when I watched Corbyn that day, a flame ignited in my heart. Not entirely because of his personality or even his short, grey, naturally styled hair, which looked quite cool, but because of the values that he stood for. The values of human rights, the values of peace, of justice, of true and pure democracy. And it was that belief that we need to build bridges, not create walls. And that's the politics that serves the people and does not serve power. My name's Mohammed Ali Islam. I'm the independent councillor for Manningham, and I stood for the elections in Manningham at the age of 18. It was 2022. I was a young man. I said that I'm sick and tired of seeing the same old stuff. And I had so many people say, what's this young man going to do? What's this kid going to do? He's got that so-called lack of experience. He's only 18. He hasn't seen life on X, Y, and Z. There were even party politicians that bet a lunch on me and said, this kid ain't going to get any more than 500 votes. But guess what? He still owes me that chicken steak, I feel. Chicken steak he owes me, and I'm going to call him out on that. But after campaigning and rallying day and night and sending a message that we can and we will, we took 1,621 votes in Manningham, and that's something that we are incredibly proud of. I will mention this, that we lost. And I'm proud that I lost, because that meant that I could go again. That meant that I could fight another day, and the second time we lost again. But that's okay, because when you're from Bradford, when you're from the inner cities of Bradford, when you go through the streets of deprivation, and when you don't have a field, you're built and created from a different fabric. And that's the fabric of Manningham. So we got up again on the third time. But this time was different, because this time we did what so many people said we couldn't do. Mike, higher? Oh, they want it higher. All right, is that okay? Fantastic. We did what many said that we couldn't do. We didn't quit, we didn't wait. We organised, we fought, and in Manningham, the very place, the exact place where the roots of the Labour Party were birthed, the exact place where the roots of that party were birthed, we dismantled them. We're taking the highest local vote majority in Yorkshire with 4,100 votes, and we are proud of that. 4,100 votes, and that wasn't done through career politicians. That wasn't done through elites in fancy polished boots. That was done through the people that live there, the people who've had enough, the people who have said it's time now more than ever. And that's the shift in political energy that we've been a part of and that we see today. That political energy doesn't come from the top. It comes from the streets, it comes from the homes, it comes from the community centres, it comes from the faith institutions, it comes from the mosques, the churches, the temples, the synagogues. It comes from the places where people unite. And later on, I stood as a parliamentary candidate for Bradford West, and we came within 700 votes of toppling the Labour majority and the party machinery. Again, that wasn't done through corporate powers. But the lesson that we learned from this, and the lesson that I've seen, is that people don't want double-standard, slimy politicians. Let's be clear. They want honest ones. They want principled ones. They want politicians who treat housing as a human right, not a capitalist project. They want politicians who fight for public services to be in public hands. They want politicians who advocate for dignity at work, for taxi drivers, for delivery drivers, for carers, for cleaners, and every other human being working day and night in our society. They want politicians who stand against war, who stand against genocide, and who stand against making a profit from arms trade and suffering, whether in Palestine, Ukraine, or Congo. They want politicians who stands with those who are forced to strike for hunger due to the hunger strike they want politicians who are first to hunger strike for justice, like Hibber and Kamran and the brave comrades who we see in the media and those who we don't, because silence is a cause in complicity. Now, when I look at the value of this movement, of the people involved, of everyone here today, I see that return to moral courage, that return that I saw in 2017 when Corbyn stood on that stage. I see a movement that would never cap children's lives. I see a movement that would never trade lives for arms deals. I see a movement that will never a working class. I see a movement that will never deprive our key workers. And I see a movement that will never punish our pensioners. The original values, as Talat mentioned, what Labour had and what many believed in and voted for are no longer here. But I'll tell you what is here. You are here. In this room, in Manningham, where it started. It will be, I know our keynote speakers are coming. I see a few young people in this crowd, and I want to send them a message that, look, if I can stand at 18, if I can shake the odds, so can you. They'll tell you that you're too young. They'll tell you what, but the truth is waiting is no longer an option. And you don't need permission to run. You don't need to wait to be ready. You don't need to look like them or sound like them. Bradford's the youngest city in Europe, and we're proud of that, and I think it's time that reflects in our politics. I stood then, you can stand now, and as Martin Luther King said, and I'll finish on a quote by him because I love finishing on a quote by him. He says, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it bends because it's ordinary people like me and you, like us here today, that are going to put our hands on it, and we're going to bend it. Thank you.
Don't have too long left, do I? I've got long. Perfect. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, and hello to everyone that's attended today. Now I'm going to do a quick... Two minutes, yeah? Right, we've got a special guest coming in. So as he's coming in, there's one famous chant from 2017 that I remember perfectly. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Louder.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Louder. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Louder.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Louder. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn. big round of applause for Jeremy Corbyn! Right. You're going to want to listen to him more than me, so I'll keep mine very, very brief. You've heard from Muhammad Ali Islam. You've heard from Talat. You are eagerly waiting to hear from Mr. Jeremy Corbyn. So I'll leave you with this. I am Councillor Ismail Uddin, and I urge you all, one by one, each ward, we must come out in our numbers, we must mobilise, we must get together and we must campaign. All the injustice you see, whether in Palestine, in Syria, in Congo, or even in the UK, it is down to the system, and the system needs a change. And it will start with you and it will end with you. So the most famous quote I will tell you is from this man here, Councillor Muhammad Ali Islam, is, "Be the change you want to see." Thank you.
Hi everyone. Before we move on to keynote speakers, we've still got a couple of local speakers who are going to talk. And next up is Val Rowlands, who's a long-standing advice worker in the Bradford district. So I'll hand you over to Val.
Okay, I'm based in the Girlington Centre in Toller Ward in Bradford, and I'm here really to tell you why it is that the community there and the workers and volunteers at the centre are desperate for a party that will challenge injustice, okay, and create a better world for all the people who use our centre. Our centre users are afflicted every day by the benefit cap, which has failed utterly to keep pace with the cost of living, with the 8-year cumulative effect of the 2-child benefit cap, with housing which is inadequate, which is in disrepair, which is damp, and which is insecure. Our clients, many of them are women who have experienced domestic violence, and they have failed to be able to access serious support for them to be able to challenge racism and misogyny in the system, which prevents them bringing their perpetrators to justice. We have clients who are suffering from the effects of fighting endless battles to get their children some kind of assistance and help if they've had diagnoses of ADHD and autism. So people are struggling enormously. I'm an immigration advisor, and I want to talk briefly about the brutal proposals being made by the current government in their cynically named A Fairer Pathway to Settlement. We deal mostly with people on the human rights family life route. And at the moment, I will give you the example of a typical client that we are assisting. She will be a single parent with a child who was born here and has achieved living here for 7 years. Currently, she is on a 10-year route to settlement, which means that every 2.5 years, costing her £4,000 each time at today's prices, and those will undoubtedly rise, she will not be able to apply for settlement until she's had 10 continuous years here. She is going to be, and she is typical of many of our clients, she is going to be hideously affected by these new proposals, because every person who has claimed benefit for up to 12 months will have an extra 5 years added on to the length of time it'll take them to get settlement. Every person who has had any period of living here without leave to be here will have another 5 years added on to their route to settlement. So most of our clients will now take 20 years to get there, meaning that they will live in a state of almost permanent insecurity. We are asking, we are demanding that we have a political party which will challenge these inhumane and unjust rules and make sure that the most vulnerable in our society are not yet again bullied and pushed into total insecurity. You will not be surprised to hear that in these new bills, for some people it's going to take 30 years to get to a position where they are settled here. Not only that, but if you are earning over £125,000 a year, then you will be able to go for settlement after 3 years. So the total injustice of the situation and the system, for it to be called a fairer pathway to settlement, is one of the most cynical uses of the term fair that I've ever come across. So I'm urging us all to campaign and work for a party that will challenge these gross injustices in the system. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Mazina Zaki from Bradford Friends of Palestine.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. There is absolutely no peace in Gaza. Since the ceasefire of the 10th October, Israel has attacked Gaza on a daily basis, carrying out nearly 800 attacks, demolishing more than 1,500 houses, and killing nearly 400 people, and it continues to block the flow of humanitarian aid. This week, Israel attacked Birzeit University in the West Bank. Palestinians need solidarity from the people in the Middle East and the rest of the world. We are not in the Middle East. For us here in Britain, our task has got to be building a Palestine movement that can break our own racist government from supporting the Israeli settler colonial regime. That image of the so-called democracy in the Middle East that Israel has always tried so hard to cultivate is now shredded. Everyone has witnessed it committing genocide. We must target this weak point with boycott, divest, and sanctions, BDS campaigns, alongside the mass protests. These campaigns have started to ramp up the pressure. 5 countries have boycotted the 2026 Eurovision contest after its organizers declined to expel Israel over its conduct in Gaza. The 2024 Eurovision winner, Nemo, has announced that they will return the trophy in protest over Israel's continued participation in the event. The pressure from the fans has led the Irish and Turkish football associations to call for Israel to be banned from the World Cup. Importantly, here in the UK, local government pension scheme funds collectively invest over £12 billion in companies complicit in Israel's apartheid. There has been sustained lobbies of council meetings and public petitions, leading several councils to take steps to divest from companies enabling Israel's war crimes against the Palestinians. I'm pleased to say that this now includes Bradford Council, after a sustained campaign from Bradford Friends of Palestine working outside of the council, and independent councillors, including my councillor Ismail, pressurizing from inside. Our government designated Palestine Action a terrorist organization, which has itself fueled regular protests. The state has arrested over 2,700 of these peaceful protesters, holding handwritten placards opposing the ban, and so for approximately 254 have been charged with terrorism-related offenses. Despite this, more people are coming forward to take part in the protests in full knowledge that they will be arrested. The state is lashing out, but is creating a situation which is very difficult for it to handle, with an under-resourced UK legal system which has faced successive government cutbacks. Its disproportionate and draconian response is ironically helping the movement to grow. As we speak, several of the Palestine Action prisoners on hunger strike in protest at their treatment. Some have been refusing food for over 60 days. Hiba Muraisi in Wakefield prison lost her ability to speak this week. Protests in solidarity are now taking place outside the prisons. We must do all that we can to brand Israel a pariah state. Why your party is important? We can get a clue if we look to Zohran Mamdani, the new elected radical socialist mayor of New York. He revoked the executive orders on BDS put in place by his predecessor to silence criticism of Israel. This was a breath of fresh air and will make it easier for New Yorkers to organize action. Everyone in the room, you are the people who can stand in the way of Starmer's shameful complicity in horrors in Gaza, Venezuela, and horrors of poverty and desperation in the UK. There's lots to do for Palestine locally. Currently, there are protests in support of hunger strikers at Wakefield Prison. We mobilize fortnightly outside Teledyne factory in Shipley, which produces surveillance and targeting equipment for Israel's F-35 genocide jets. We gather and fly the Palestine flag on Manchester Road Peace Bridge each month. And we continue to lobby the West Yorkshire Pension Fund to divest from companies complicit in Israel's apartheid and human rights abuses. Next protest is on the 29th of January. And of course, it's so important to keep on attending the national and local demonstrations for Palestine and keep on building solidarity in your workplaces, trade unions, schools, communities where you worship, and everywhere you go. I'll leave you with the message. Please join us in these campaigns. Sign up to our campaigns on the stalls before you leave. Keep on going until Palestine is free, until we are all free. Free, free? Palestine. Free, free? Palestine. From the river to the sea? Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Thanks, Mazina. I happen to know that's the first time she's spoken in public, so that was fantastic. Really well done. Our next speaker is Professor Zaira Shakir for Stand Up to Racism. So.
Hello, everyone. Hello, beautiful Bradford, the beautiful diverse city that I live in. Okay, we're here today because anti-racism is not a slogan, it's a necessity. We're told again and again that Britain is broke. There's no money for housing, for schools or public services, but the facts tell us a very different story. Britain is one of the richest countries in the world, yet more than 14 million people live in poverty, and that includes over 4 million children. But at the same time, the richest 1% hold of all the wealth in this country. This didn't happen by accident, it happened by political design. And since 2010, austerity has cut our communities to the bone. But defence spending has continued to rise. The government spends 2.3% GDP on defence spending every year, and they have committed to more than doubling this in the next 9 years. At the same time, health experts estimate that poverty-related ill health is around 50 billion a year, which equates to about half of defence spending. So what we say is that the state is functioning as a war machine, and you can read Corbyn's book, which I have, about this. And they are imposing permanent austerity on us in this country. So when people feel the pressure, when wages stagnate, rents rise and services collapse, the government does not point to the wealthy who avoid billions in tax. Did you know that tax avoidance that's been uncollected is around £57 billion? So the government points downwards. They point at migrants, at Muslims, at refugees arriving in small boats. This is not a coincidence. This is scapegoating. And history shows us exactly how this works. That the government is creating crisis to manufacture enemies within our country, to distract and deflect attention from their own responsibilities. And we are seeing this time and time again. We're told that migrants, when the real cause is decades of underinvestment and speculation. We're told that Muslims are a threat to British values, while evidence shows no link between immigration and rising crime. We are told to fear the poor, while billionaires' wealth continues to explode. Racism becomes a smokescreen that protects that power. We see this even how sexual violence is weaponized. Politicians obsess over grooming gangs, and they deliberately racialize them as Muslim. Yet, official government data will tell you that the vast majority of perpetrators of sexual violence are white British men. Time and time again, inquiries, millions of pounds have been spent on inquiries, and those recommendations to support those victims have not been fulfilled. Yet we are paying for further inquiries. To prove what and to help who? So racialized panic is more politically useful than protecting those very survivors, because blaming Muslims, for example, is easier than funding safeguarding services. So what are we going to do? We have to resist. We have to protest. We have to organize. We have to stand in solidarity as the state tightens its grip. The state even introduces new laws over the last few years to shut down people for being too noisy or disruptive in protests. People are arrested for holding placards. Palestine solidarity is treated as a threat to public order. We have got to change this system. This is what authoritarianism is looking like, and it's making resistance difficult, but we still have to fight back. So neutrality is an excuse for being a moral coward. Let's be clear, silence is not neutral. Silence sides with power. We see that brown and black faces are increasingly used to front racist policies on immigration, policing, welfare. That's not about empowerment. That's a racial cover and the use and a strategic deployment of black and brown people to push racism and push division. Colonial systems have always worked this way. Reward a few to discipline the many. Elevate acceptable voices and punish resistance. But anti-racism means refusing that trap. It means understanding that racism is not just about prejudice, it's about who is protected and who is disposable. So this is the truth that we need to say. This system itself that we live in actually needs racism to survive. It needs division, it needs fear, it needs us blaming instead of blaming each other instead of those at the top. And that's why anti-racism is dangerous to power, because it builds solidarity. Your struggle is connected to mine. This is one fight, this is one struggle, and this is one love. These streets are ours, our futures are ours, and we will not be divided. Thank you.
Can I just remind everybody that if you're not a member of your party, or if you're not in touch with us via locally, there's some signing sheets at the back. Please sign them. Our next speaker, and after our next speaker, which is Professor Paul Rogers, we're going to have a short break, short comfort break, but also we're going to pass around buckets to put some money in if you can. Obviously, if people can't, that's absolutely no problem, but this has been quite expensive to hire this hall, so please contribute if you can. Okay, so our next speaker, very lucky to have him because he's a last-minute addition to our bill. It's great he's here. Professor Paul Rogers, who's the Emeritus Professor of Peace Studies from Bradford University.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. Totally unexpected, but I was talking to Jeremy and Lara last night, and Jeremy suggested, can you just do a short sort of summary of where we are? I thought, oof. So I've got 5 minutes at the most, and I'll try and keep it shorter than that, just to take a broader view. It's very difficult because, I mean, what we've been hearing in the last few minutes, the different comments coming from, you see the whole range of problems that we're up against. And if you're looking at it internationally, then it becomes even more difficult to sort of put it together. But I'll have a quick go and try and do it in a way which we can look at positive things as well as the real problems that we face us. As I see it, I think where we are now is three broad issues, three broad problems which interact in different ways. I'm talking almost at the global scale. And they won't come as any surprise to you. One, obviously, is broadly speaking, worldwide, we have an economy which does not actually work for people as a whole. It's not people-orientated. You can call it market fundamentalism, you can call it neoliberalism, but the point is it produces more and more division. As we just heard now, the levels of wealth are extraordinary. And essentially, it does not seem to be changing at all. If anything, it's getting worse. You have this extraordinary position of somebody like Elon Musk, who now controls personally wealth of very nearly $500 billion. That's almost unbelievable in terms of the sheer amount. And that's happening more. And of course, with that comes political power. You can directly, certainly, and easily, indirectly, buy political votes. And it's a huge problem that we face. So you've got that. The second issue, inevitably, is the environment. No question at all. Because essentially, basically, climate breakdown is happening. And remember, it's all about more energy in the climate, in the atmosphere. So it can involve very deep cold spells and also growing heat. You look at what's happening in Victoria. By the day at present, they can't control the fires. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. The crazy thing here is that we can prevent this. We know now that you can produce power, electricity, cheaper by renewables than by the other means. And it's easy enough to do this. It's cheaper to do it. But of course, with the huge amount of vested interests that you have in the world's oil, gas, and coal companies and countries, it's very difficult to actually make yourself heard on this. And then the final one, without question, is the whole business of the war machine, and we've heard about that already. Just to add 2 or 3 things to that. You'll remember the extraordinary situation just 2 or 3 years ago when this country took £4 billion a year out of the development program and put it into defense. I mean, it's astonishing that when you think, okay, there are all sorts of problems if you're working on development. I worked in that area myself 40, 50 years ago, and many inefficiencies. But also, its heart is in the right place for most people working in it. Essentially, you had that change. When you put these things all together, then you find that the war problem is really one of the biggest of all. And it's something we do not appreciate. And we heard this extraordinary statement from one person by the name of Donald Trump just 4 days ago, that he plans to increase the American military budget by $500 billion a year from next year. That's about a 50% increase in what it is at present. It's almost unbelievable, but he believes he can do it. That's the kind of issue we face. You put all of them together. You put the environment, the economy, and essentially the whole issue of the war machine, put them together and they interact. And I think the one thing always to remember, many of us here will be interested in one or other of these issues. You'll work hard at it. And you wonder, where are we going? How can we have a bigger effect? The thing always to remember, if you're concerned with migration issues, with race relations and the rest, with housing, with the war machine and the rest, they all actually are part of a much wider thing. Any one contribution is a contribution to the whole. And you just see by the number of people that we've got here today, the importance of doing it politically. And this is why Jeremy, I think, is so important in this field. So all I'm saying is look at it broadly. There's a huge amount we can do as individually. If we see it as part of a whole, we can be really extremely effective. Time is short, but change can come. And I hope desperately that we're going to be able to do that. Thanks very much for these few brief words, and best of luck today. See you.
So we're going to have a brief break for 5-10 minutes at the absolute most. We'll be passing buckets round. There's also QR codes so you can connect to our GoFund page if you've not got any cash on you. But obviously, if you are struggling, please don't feel you have to put money in. But if you can, please do.
Just watch it from the front slightly as well. Just stop them there. Do it from about here. Yeah.
This young lady wants to say hello to you.
Can you do an announcement?
Yeah.
Just say that after the...
Yeah. Attention please, ladies and gentlemen. Can we please start sitting down, take your seats. If you want your pictures and selfies and handshakes, I promise we'll have some time at the end. But we must go through some of the speakers now. So please take your seat and we'll be ready to start in just a couple of minutes.
This guy wanted a 2-minute interview with JC, like, for a radio station.
Not now.
Not now?
No. Yeah, afterwards. Yeah. Afterwards.
Okay, everyone, if you could get back to your seats, that would be great. As I said, Arshad is going to introduce our two keynote speakers. So I'll just hand you over to Arshad. This event wouldn't have happened without all the hard work Arshad's put in. So.
Thank you very much, Neil. Very kind of you. I don't know how to work this. Can we all please take a seat, please? Can we take all please seat? Let's all take a seat. Just a quick announcement before I introduce the next speakers.
Hello everybody, my name's Goran, I'm from the Bradford branch. Just a very quick one. If anybody wants to receive information branch regarding our next meeting, grab me and my friend Ian, who's down there, and also please go to the back and leave your details, and we will contact you as regards our next meetings. And just to say, you don't actually have to be a Your Party member for us to keep you informed, so don't worry if you're not a Your Party member. It's great if you're a supporter, but at the back we've got colleagues signing people up, and then there's a couple of us floating around. Thank you.
We've got a couple of video messages recorded which we're going to have to play on the technical side here. Until they get that set up, can I please invite very quickly Councillor Udin? Councillor Udin, if you can come and say a couple of words, then we'll until we get the video sorted out, please. Give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. One of our youngest Bradford councillors.
Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Where I was before, again, hello and thank you very much to everyone that's attended today. I'm Councillor Ismail, independent councillors, and currently I am the youngest British Bangladeshi councillor in the UK. Now, I'll keep my speech very simple because everyone's covered everything. We've had some inspirational speeches. We've had speeches to mobilise. We've heard from Stand Up to Racism and the whole topic of colonialism. So I'll start here today because you want to make a change. But how do we make that change? That change will start with you and it'll end with you. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that, meetings aside, we've got this great gentleman, and we've got Yvonne, and we've got wonderful speakers, but you will be the next. It will depend on you. In these upcoming elections, we will need every hand on deck. We will need every single person's support to go forth and make that change. And most of all, you need to be that change. You need to stand up for yourself. Like I said, injustice is everywhere. It was in Syria, it was in Sudan, it was in Congo, it's in Palestine. It's also in Rohingya. Like I said, injustice is not stagnant. So the way we're going to go forward is by tackling and replacing the current system. We must replace the current councillors, because my problem is that Keir Starmer has made various statements. I've flagged this up. What does that mean? It means that every person that is vulnerable signifies and becomes a burden. That is not true. We welcome people in this city. Bradford is a city of sanctuary. Bradford is my hometown, and Bradford is your hometown. So the last thing I will say to you, we keep protesting with the people. I've got my uncles right in front of me. Week by week, we stood shoulder to shoulder. I've got Mazina, who's done a wonderful job of promoting divestment in Bradford Council, and yourself too. Now, again, hopefully after this meeting you gain some inspiration. I understand that it may have been problematic and you may have seen little problems arise, but just do remember, change isn't easy. A brand new party like this isn't easy, which is why we need to be unified despite our differences and despite what he said or she said or they said. It doesn't, and it will depend on you as much as it will depend on me going forward to make that change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Next, we've got a really moving and pertinent poem by a Bradford poet, Kirsty Taylor, right? So she's given us, she can't be here today, unfortunately, but she's given us permission to play a video. Now, we're having some technical problems with your video, so we may only be able to hear the sound, but I think that's going to be good enough. So, Neil, whenever you're ready, mate, if you can... Yeah. And while they're doing that, if you're sitting, if you can, you've got some leaflets on your chairs. If you haven't already joined your party, it might be a good opportunity for us to do that today. So please, if you can, scan the QR code on the leaflets or go www.yourparty.uk and you can join within a couple of minutes there. How are we getting on here, Neil? Yeah. Just bear with us a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Sunsets over England, cutting sky and country into two. One side demanding peace, the other red, white and blue. A road between us, but miles apart when patriotism attacks. The left just want a free country, while the right, they just want it back. I see these guys on picket lines, up lampposts and raising flags, raising colours, out painting roundabouts, when there could be raising lads. Lads like Leon and lads like Lewis who think they're England's finest. One's great-granddad was an immigrant, one's mother is mostly Irish. Draped in St George, who was far from English to protect the girls and women, targeting innocent refugees, because what? They're blinded by the system. With socks tucked into trackies and a Paul the Shark hat, cherry black ice vape and a worn-out JD bag. The boys are stood in bus stops, the boys are trapped in class. Now the boys are up the scaff for England with the Union Jack. These boys grow up with nothing, even love gets tucked round here. And these boys, they have to grow up quick, or they'll often disappear. These boys have learned not to ask for out, they need permission to laugh. They can't turn up for themselves most days, but can turn up to hotels en masse. Their voices break between the bellows and beats of Royal Britannia. Red faces spit and rage for empire, flinging racist propaganda. Supping Stellas and throwing hands, it's a day out for the lads. Between Sweet Caroline and Get Them Out, they just want their country back. And Saeed is in the hotel, and he's got nothing too. And he knows of war, of grief, of the card he drew. We have more in common than that which divides us is somehow ringing true, as his life is also dictated by power-hungry men in suits. A prayer mat sits on shit red carpets. It's a life he's hardly chose, making pasta in kettles and saying du'as in the same room that he washes his clothes. On Best Western pillows, he misses his mum as he spirals in nightmares of home, trying his best to forget, but trying his best to hold on to memories he can call his own. He peeks through thick striped curtains to a woman drawing lines to her throat, and a sea of angry men, arms up, and between them they're floating a boat. One man pretends that he's drowning, while another lad throws up a flare, and one man is beating his chest aggressively to show England how much that he cares. If you care about our country and you really want it back, could you do something? Country and you really want it back, could you do something for your community without
Sorry, we're having a little Wi-Fi malfunction.
aggressively to show England how much that he cares? If you care about our country and you really want it back, could you do something for your community without weaponising that flag? Could you go check on your neighbour or teach something to them lads? Because we're British about that. We're colonised and gaslit, a recipe for the fascists, but the people ruining your life, mate, are from the upper classes. It's not the small boats or refugees on their 50 quid a week. It's not the people fleeing war. It's not Muslims. It's not Saeed. It's in their yachts and private jets. So when you remember your granddad and you say never forget, may it also mean never again. Because we're complicit in a live stream genocide, so lest we pretend. If they've got money for bombs and weapons, then they have got money for your friends who can't afford to feed the kids or even make ends meet. And they have got money to house the people living on the streets. A road between us, but miles apart. Council estates at border mansions, where wealth is neighbouring poverty, so a scapegoat is a distraction. So when you're busy at the hotels, when you're busy raising flags, when you're busy not protecting women, when you're busy not raising lads, when you're busy targeting innocent people just to get your country back, when you realise they aren't the problem, who else will you attack?
Yeah, that was a rather marvellous poem from a local poet for her, even though she's not here today. Thank you, Kirsty. Now, the next video, again, it's a video of an activist who helped Zoran Mamdani in New York to his greatest victory. They were crucially involved in the campaign. Fahad Ahmed was here in Bradford just, I think, a week or two ago. Some of us were there. I had a word with him and I invited him to come and speak here, but unfortunately he was to go to the United States on the 31st, so he went abroad. But I had a word with him, what we were doing here today. He was very supportive and he promised to send us a video message. And if Neil could play that video message, please, and we'll listen to his message. Thank you.
Friends, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fahad Ahmed, and I am the director of an organization in New York City called DRUM, Desi's Rising Up and Moving. And we organize working class South Asian and Indo-Caribbean people for social justice, immigrant rights, worker rights, police accountability, housing, education, and against militarism, war, and genocide. We also have a partner organization called Drum Beats, that was one of the 4 organizations that endorsed Zohran Mamdani on the date that he launched his campaign, when he was polling less than 1%. And then we played winning him votes in South Asian and Caribbean communities, and played a critical role in that victory. I was invited, I was recently in the United Kingdom, in England, and had an opportunity to share our experiences of our day-to-day organizing work, as well as our experiences from supporting Zohran Mamdani. And there I had the honor of meeting Arshad Ali, also had the honor of meeting Jeremy Corbyn, and Brother Arshad Ali asked me to share a reflection and a message for your gathering, and here I am doing so. I want to share 3 particular points. What is it about the Zohran Mamdani campaign that made it so successful? There are multiple factors. He is a very charismatic candidate. He did have a very strong grassroots movement, including organizations like ours, that already existed in New York City that were able to throw down and play a critical role. There is also a particularity to the current political moment. And that's, I think, the thing that I want to hone in on. For us to be able to understand the situation that we're in, facing the rise of the right wing, we have to understand, why is it that the right wing is rising? Is it rising because people are actually moving to the right? Or are they rising because people are tired of what the centrists have been offering or are unable to offer? And our conclusion is towards the latter, that it isn't that our communities or people in larger society are moving to the right, it's that people are tired of the nothingness that is being offered by the neoliberal center. That they want to come and talk to our communities, talk sweetly to us, but they really have no plan and no commitment to improve the material lives of working people, around employment, around housing, around transit, around education, because they are committed to the capitalist class. And they would rather serve that capitalist ruling class than serve the needs of working class people. And so when working class people experience this dynamic, they experience a high level of disillusionment and despair from the centrist, and they're looking for an alternative. And so far, at least in the US, that alternative only came from the right wing, who was willing to acknowledge that suffering, and instead, but offered a alternative that was based on hate, on blaming immigrants, blaming black people, blaming Muslims, blaming queer people. And what we actually need is an alternative from the left. One that understands the connectedness of us to each other, understands solidarity, understands unity, and understands that the real problem is the class that wants to make sure that we don't have any material gains or benefits for us. And so I think that is the first thing, is being able to recognize the problem. Then what do we do in response to that? And I think what we were able to do here in New York City, the Mamdani campaign led with material issues. It led with your housing, your rent is too damn high. Your childcare is too damn high. Transit should be fast and free. And so meeting with like the material needs of people in the way that historically the left has been good at doing, but then also being able to follow up with the particularities of different communities. What do Muslim communities need? What do black communities need? What do immigrant communities need? What do queer people need? What do women need? And I think this is a balance that the left has struggled with. The old left that only wants to focus on class issues but cannot talk about the particularities and understanding how different communities have different needs. And speaking to those needs is how we bring them in. And a new left that's very overly focused on identity, about what do different communities need, but then isn't able to offer a broader vision, a class-based approach that can speak to a broad set of people. And this is the balance that we need to strike. And so I think like that is the first offering of like properly understand the dynamics that we are facing and being able to offer solutions that are responsive to that moment. Then a second part that I want to emphasize in this moment is we really have to do some critical self-reflection within the left of the culture that we have internally. For too long, the left has been highly factionalized, highly sectarian, for minuscule differences, rather than like what are the broader issues that can bring us together. And we need a left that can be inviting, that can be joyful, and fundamentally that is committed to principled struggle. Understanding that we're not going to agree on everything, but how is it that we navigate the differences that we have in a way that is productive and actually deepens unity rather than heightens fragmentation and sectarianism. And that, if the left is not able to overcome that challenge, we are not going to be able to move and be able to build the power that we need to. And a lot of that requires us being able to do the internal work. How do we not let our egos get in the way? How do we not let our how do we not fixate on small things that really aren't relevant to the broad range of everyday people? We really have to figure out and prioritize what are the things that the broad range of people care about. Everything after that is secondary. And the last thing I want to end with is that the stakes are very high. We are facing an existential crisis of the economy, of climate, of militarism and genocide. And that is coming both from the centrists and from the right. And the right actually wants to accelerate those problems and make them much worse. And so it is the responsibility of the left in this moment to really do some self-reflection, do some cleaning up of our house, have clarity about how it is that we move forward, and make the interventions that our people desperately need us to make. The survival of our people, the survival of humanity, the survival of our societies is dependent on whether we are able to make.
I'm afraid I think the last couple of seconds are missing, so a round of applause for Fahad, all the way from the USA. It's technology, isn't it? So I think the last couple of seconds I've been somehow lost in that, but we get the gist of the message, don't we, here? Right, the next speaker, it gives me great pleasure really to introduce the next two speakers, especially we've known him for over 20 years, both of them, so it's a really great pleasure. The first one, young lady, born in the working class mining town of Stanley in County Durham. She joined the Labour Party as a young teenager and then resigned over the Iraq War, as many of us did, back in 2003, was it? Yeah. She's a British journalist, an author, wrote many books. One of them is In the Hands of the Taliban. It's riveting reading if you haven't already read it, and quite funny at intervals. A journalist, worked for many different newspapers. She was a chief reporter when she was sent on a mission to Afghanistan just after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, where she was then captured by the Taliban. What she did was she saw John Simpson dress up in a burqa, and she thought she'll try that again. But she went on a donkey and got discovered, and the Taliban captured her, and she was captured there for, I think, 11 days or something, after which she was then released. Yeah. On her return, traveling to, she was uncovered when the donkey she was on, riding on, bolted and ran, and the camera was seen by the Taliban, so that was rather unfortunate. Yeah. She was accused of being a spy, which carried a death sentence. Obviously, it was a very serious offence, and at the least she could have gone to jail if there wasn't people who intervened on her behalf. Recently, she was one of the over 450 people on the global Simud flotilla, where she was abducted illegally out of international waters by the Israeli IDF. So, ladies and gentlemen, give her a great big Bradford welcome, Yvonne Ridley.
Brothers, sisters, comrades, salam alaikum. As you heard, I am a journalist, and in September I will have been in this honourable profession, and it is an honourable profession. I'll have been in this honourable profession for 50 years. You know, words are the tools of my trade, and to see more than 250 of my colleagues shot, targeted, assassinated, and murdered in Gaza, it breaks my heart. I can't think of any other nation in the world that would get away with the wholesale slaughter of journalists, as well as doctors, healthcare workers, and people who have set out on their lives and careers that many parents aspire their children to do. So, as I said before, you know, words are my trade. And the word that I want to focus on today is one of unity. And there is strength in unity. There is a massive strength in this hall today, as long as we are unified in politics. And if we all come together, this government will tremble, and so will the Tories and other mainstream political parties who are not doing our bidding. They are doing the bidding of a foreign power. More than half the Labour cabinet are signed up friends of Israel. And we have the Israelis dictating in the courts, in Parliament, in all walks of life, how we should be living our lives. Well, I don't want to live under Tel Aviv. Do you? Sorry, louder? I want Westminster to hear this, because they'll be knocking on your door shortly if they haven't already, and they'll be wanting your vote in the May elections. And you can make a difference as long as we are unified in our intentions. Now, I'm not a member of your party. I'm a member of the Workers' Party. But we are on the left, and both these parties have a conscience and compassion and a great love for the Palestinians. So we should come together in the spirit of unity, and that's why I'm sharing a platform with Jeremy today, because we have more that unites us than divides us. It's a no-brainer when you come to choose your candidate. Just look at the parties, discount the Zionist parties, which are the mainstream parties, the parties that have sold out the Palestinians because they're afraid of this powerful lobby group, Friends of Israel. The other thing with looking back over 50 years of journalism is sometimes I feel as though we're on a cycle. At the moment, we have some brave souls who've gone on hunger strike, and they are in their 67th, 68th day. if I can remind you of the Irish hunger strikers led by Bobby Sands. Bobby Sands died after 66 days on hunger strike. We have to do everything in our power to try and save these brave souls. And you can do it by writing to your members of parliament and get them to push the Foreign Office. Because if any one of these brave young girls or lads die, it will be David Lammy's fault. And make no mistake, he could stop it now. He could stop it tomorrow by saying, give them bail, take them to hospital, and let's proceed with treatment. I said before that there's interference in the courts. The Sheriff's Court in Edinburgh about 3 days ago on a charge of terrorism. I'm 67 years old, and there I was with another group, and we didn't look like a gang of terrorists at all. We looked more like people who were about to embark on a saga holiday. But this is where we are with this government. Even though Scotland has its own legal system and has its own government, we are still being dictated to by Westminster, and they are the ones that are pushing these charges. And there's more than 200 of us in Scotland that have been charged so far under the Terrorism Act. What for? For wearing a T-shirt. A T-shirt which all it said was "Stop the genocide in Palestine. Take action now." I don't know what's happening to this country. Again, words have become crucially important. I can stand with a placard in central London, in fact anywhere in Britain, saying I support genocide, and nobody will bother me, nobody will arrest me. There was a guy on TikTok the other day walking up and down waving this placard, I support genocide, under the noses of 2 Metropolitan police officers. And they basically told him, you're wasting your time, we're not interested. He said, but you would be, wouldn't you, if I said, I oppose genocide? Oh, well, that's different. What sort of country are we living in where it's okay to see children starve? I've got my British passport here. This is one of the most useless documents in the world, and I discovered that when I was arrested by the Israelis. And they're standing over me and trying to browbeat me to sign a document in Hebrew. And I said, I don't even know what it says. What does it say? And the guy said, you have entered our country illegally. I went, what? You kidnapped me off a boat, off the flotilla, took me hostage, and brought me into a country that I don't even recognize. And now you're saying I deliberately entered Israel without documents. If you open the front page of your passport, it says quite clearly, let the bearer pass freely without let or hindrance. And it also says that if necessary, you should offer this person protection. Well, we've seen the sort of protection that Israel offered the flotilla, all 450 of us, more than 40 different nations. They beat us, they abused us, they humiliated us. When I was taken into the processing center, they told me to strip in front of everyone. It was a horrendous experience. And of course, after 6 days, and thank you, Jeremy, for raising my case in the Parliament, after 6 days, I was released into the hands of the British consular officials, who then informed me I would have to pay an airfare to fly back home. And I said, I'm not paying anything. You know, I've been kidnapped and taken hostage. Why don't you tell the Israelis to pay? Keir Starmer airlifted free of charge a whole load of Israelis when Iran was bombing Tel Aviv. No question of them having to pay, but I had to pay, and that's the difference. I have to say, there's an add to that story. The Libyan ambassador overheard. Now, one of the boats on the flotilla, which is the one that I was on, was a Libyan boat, the Omar al-Mokhtar. And he came over to me and he said, Yvonne, I've heard the exchange and I want you to do us the honor of joining our flight. The president is flying his private jet to Istanbul to pick you all up and to fly you back to Tripoli, where there'll be a special reception for you. So I accepted. I then went back to the British consular official and said, there's been a change of plan. I won't be coming home with you. And she said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going with the Libyans. She said, it's not safe in Libya. And I said, is it safe in Britain? One of the flotilla members, Sarah Wilkinson, was arrested when she arrived in Britain and was given 3 terror charges. I said, and I keep seeing all these images of blind and disabled people and elderly people being arrested in Westminster for holding up placards. I said, I'm telling you now, I'm a lot safer in Tripoli than I am in Britain. You see, the truth doesn't matter to these people. They grab Maduro for drugs, but then Trump turns around and goes, no, it was about oil. We want their oil. They say that he's saying now that he needs Greenland, and that's all about power. And by the way, if he's looking at Greenland, I can tell you now he'll be looking at Scotland and the Faslane nuclear base, because there is nothing between New York and Faslane to stop any Russian subs going through that stretch of water. So don't think that we're all safe either, because we're not. They say that Rennie Good from Minnesota was a domestic terrorist. I'm sure you've all seen the videos, and under no stretch of the imagination was that a legitimate killing. It was murder. But this is, you know, we're back to words again. Their words, the words from the leaders that we have in the world today, are lies. And they look at us straight in the eye and they lie. And when they come knocking on your door for your vote, put them on the spot and ask them, why do you let babies in Gaza die? Why won't Starmer call this out as genocide? And don't let them turn round and say, oh, look, that's different sort of politics to the local politics. If you join the dots, it's all the same. So don't let them off the hook when they try and squirm Make them realise that you are not going to vote for genocide supporters. I'll wrap up now, otherwise Ash is going to get one of those long canes and pull me off stage. But some of you might have heard that I had gone missing while I was in captivity in Israel. I hadn't gone missing at all, but on the second day I was supposed to be released, and an IDF soldier came banging on our cell door and said, "Get ready, you're going home. Yalla," meaning hurry up. And I was in a cell with 17 other women who I'd really bonded with, fantastic, amazing South American women. And so I spent a while saying goodbye to all of them. And he kept hammering on the door saying, "Yalla, yalla." And when I got to the door and he opened it, he put his face right into mine and he said, "Yalla, you're going home." I said, "I wish you were going home." And he looked, slammed the door and went off. So my big mouth got me into trouble and I ended up staying an extra 4 days before I got out again. But on that note, you know, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you everybody.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you. Now, the moment you've been... Oops. Right, I better not touch it then. Right. So, here we are. The moment you've been waiting for. 20 minutes of me telling dad jokes, yeah? Isn't that what you came for? No? Well, what did you come here for? All right then. Oh? Oh? What did you come here for? All right. Well, the next is no stranger to anyone here. He joined the Labour Party in 1965, before many of us in this room were born, so he's been there a long time. Remained a member until he was expelled in 2024. Served as the leader of the Labour Party from 2015 to 2020, one of Britain's foremost socialists. Served as president of Stop the War Coalition, together with great people like Tony Benn. Recipient of the Gandhi International Peace Award as well. Not allowed to stand as a Labour candidate for his constituency, so he decided to stand independent. He wasn't allowed to do that, so he did stand independent, and he won with a massive majority. Currently sits as an independent MP, co-found your party in recently, 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, let's stand on our feet and give Jeremy Corbyn the biggest Bradford welcome. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the sparks. Are they going to be on for the rest of the afternoon? It's a great thing to be in a wedding venue. Can we put it together, our hands together and thank the staff of the wedding venue for putting it on this afternoon. Sorry. Thank you very much. Sorry we had a little technical difficulty there. So thank you for all coming this afternoon. And can I say a huge thank you to Arshad for all his organising work, the effort he's put into this, and all the volunteers that have helped to put on today's event, because no, without an enormous amount of effort going into it. And so I also want to just say a point of history, really. We're having this event today in Bradford, and I'll be talking about your party and what the prospects are for the future. Bradford is a place that has a very special position in the history of the Labour movement, in the history of socialist ideas and radical ideas. It's where the Independent Labour Party was founded. It's where many of the nation's peace movements come from. It's where Bradford University has its Department of Peace Studies. It's a place of great solidarity with mill workers in the past and industrial workers later on, and it's this incredible history of the radicalism of West Yorkshire, which is absolutely part and parcel of the political life of the whole of Yorkshire, and particularly of West Yorkshire. So we tread in the path of those that went before, and underwent great hardship in forming political organisations based on socialist clubs in villages as a way of providing an alternative to the brutality of Victorian capitalism, the poverty that went with it, the discrimination that went with it. And so they formed trade unions, they formed socialist societies, they formed organisations in order to fight back and bring about change. So every time I think of the National Health Service and somebody criticises the National Health Service, I delve back in my memory and mind to those people that had a vision of a society that provided care for those that need it, free at the point of need, because it's the duty of the community to help everybody else when they need it. That's a principle of socialism, and that was a principle behind them and behind the foundation of our National Health Service. Let's not ignore our history, but be proud of our history and understand it, and so that our party does become very much part and parcel of the community. My own experience in the Labour Party has been a very interesting one. I spent most of my life as a member of the Labour Party, and eventually I became leader of the Labour Party, much to the chagrin of the vast majority of the Parliamentary Labour Party and almost every one of the national officials of the party and every single one of the national media in this country. So it was fun. And it was nice being alone on many of those occasions. But I was determined to represent the views of people that had taken part in that leadership election and joined the Labour Party because they wanted to see an alternative. And if you think about the history of that period, and I'm writing about it at the moment, around 91% of the media were hostile, 5% were neutral, which meant 4% were possibly positive to what we're trying to do. We went into the 2017 election on only 24% support across the whole country. Mind you, if Starmer had 24% now, he'd be popping champagne corks, wouldn't he? And so we went into the election on 24%. Point, I remember my office saying, what are we going to do now? I said, we're going to go out there. We're going to hold rallies in every town. We're going to campaign. We're going to excite people and mobilize people. And we put that support up to 41% during the period of that campaign. And that was because we were able to offer a vision of a slight soupçon of a vision of what the world could be like. How people didn't have to live in an over-expensive, privately rented flats, and so on. There was so much more in that. And so we did all that. Eventually, we all know what happened, and we lost the 2019 election, but still got a higher percentage of vote than any other time, a higher vote rather, than any other time this century for Labour. And I was then eventually removed from the Labour Party for a number of appalling accusations that were made against me, all of which were wrong and unfounded, and I was then reinstated as a member but denied access to the Parliamentary Labour Party. So as Arshad said, I then stood as an independent in Islington North. And I want to say thank you to the hundreds of people from all over the country that came to Islington to help in that election. We confounded them. We won that election and proved that you can win policies, and I'm forever proud of the last leaflet we did in which to counteract the disgusting and disgraceful message from Reform and the appeasement of Reform by every other party. We put on the front of the leaflet, refugees are welcome here. And so we tried to put a sense of humanity around it. Then the issues were about forming. Now, I've just finished my pantomime season in Islington, where I became the Wizard of Oslington. So I'm a wizard, or was. Season's over. And in that, the line I used was, I formed a new party, but it's a bit harder than you think. And so we have formed the party. We have recruited a very large number of members. We're now going through the structural issues and the election for the committee of the party and all that, and we are recognised and registered with the Electoral Commission and so on. But people are not going to vote for our party or support our party unless we are part and parcel of the community at all times, for the good days and the bad, inside the community, to protect hospitals, to protect children's centres, to protect parks and open spaces. We're there trying to improve people's lives, and we're alongside people on those day-to-day struggles, a community-based and community-organised party. They're also going to want to know what we're going to do. What we're going to do about the issues of poverty and inequality within our society. Angry that there are 4 million children living in poverty. I'm angry that it took so long to get even something so simple as the 2-child benefit cap lifted. I'm angry at the levels of privatisation that are going on within the National Health Service. I'm angry that there is no proper social care system in the whole country that provides everyone with access to social care as and when they need it on exactly the same principles as the National Health Service. These are the kind of policies that I want your party to adopt, the ones that we will campaign on, the ones concerning public ownership of water, of transport, of energy, ones that really empower people and democratize their lives. That surely is what we have to be about. But we also have to be aware of things that are going on in society. And there are two very nasty trends going on. One is the move to the far right, the growth of Reform, the growth of the blame culture, and going to communities that are up against it because of deindustrialisation ever since Margaret Thatcher. Then Farage and Reform turn up and say it's all the fault of refugees and it's all the fault of migrants. Then they produce the sort of disgusting legislation which you spoke about earlier today and say, well, it's all the fault of migrants. Well, if any of them ever went into a hospital, they would find that if people hadn't moved to this and worked in our National Health Service, on our transport systems, in our schools, we wouldn't have much of a health service. We wouldn't have a care service. We wouldn't have much of a transport system. We wouldn't have much of an education system either. The wealth and the living standards we all enjoy are in part provided by people who've moved to this country, made their homes here, and made a fantastic contribution to our society and our world. And we should never to say that or apologise for saying that. That is what we have to do. The other thing I've noticed over the last 18 months since this government came into office, I noticed it before, and to some extent under Tony Blair, is this rush towards authoritarianism in our society. I remember when Blair tried to introduce the 90-day rule, 90 days detention without trial for people on suspicion of terrorist offences. We defeated that because a substantial number of Labour MPs rebelled against it, and we linked up with some small number, but important, Conservative MPs, Liberal Democrats and others, and we managed to defeat that appalling proposal. What we now have is something equally insidious, an attempt to end trial by jury for most offences within our society, to fundamentally remove legal rights. And as Yvonne was pointing out, to arrest people by the use of anti-terror legislation merely for holding placards and signs up, and then put them in prison, in many cases due to be in prison for at least another year before they have their time and day in court, actually amounts to the equivalent of administrative detention within our society. Our civil liberties are not going to be removed by the stroke of a pen on one particular day. They're going to be taken away bit by bit, clause by clause, move by move, until there is the idea that you can't go and demonstrate, you can't speak out, you can't say what you believe, because there will be somebody up to tell you you can't do it, and if necessary, arrest and imprison you as a result of it. So we need to stand up for those rights and those liberties, because if we don't, they will be taken away and they will be destroyed. And so Farage tried one of his tricks in Parliament, a private member's bill, to remove Britain from the European Convention of Human Rights and leaving the European Council. I used to be a member of the European Council. This is not the European Union. It's not the equivalent of what used to be called the Common Market. It's the Council of Europe, which represents all parliaments across Europe. And it is the custodian of the European Convention of Human Rights and elects judges to the European Court of Human Rights, which they conveniently keep calling a foreign court. It's not. It's part and parcel of the judicial system of every one of the member states. And it's helped in many ways to get anti-discrimination measures in place. It's been a court of last resort for people that have been, whose human rights have been abused in many countries. And so I just assumed, since Keir Starmer is apparently a human rights lawyer, and assumed that because he told us he's a human rights lawyer, that he believed in international law and justice, that he would be opposed to Farage's plan. And so when it came to a vote, Labour MPs were instructed to abstain. In other words, to allow Farage to win. Well, I voted against it, as did the Independent Alliance group of MPs, as did some Labour MPs, including Imran Hussain from this borough. He was one of those that voted against it. And we managed to defeat Farage's proposal quite narrowly. But something really worried me, that we had a government that was saying it was not prepared to stand up for a significant part of our civil libertarian law. That is a dangerous place to be in. And so there's much more campaigning to do on that. So our party has to work on all of these issues, mobilize people, educate people, and promote community activities. Those community activities are music, our theatre, our history, our life. It is being part and parcel of the community. And that's exactly what we intend to be. And I'm determined that your party will be big, will be effective, and will be, I hope, powerful. It's also not a point of competition with every other party that's on the scene. It's not a point of competition with every other independent group around the country. So that means there has to be a working together. And the words Yvonne used was, it's a no-brainer. If you want to win an election, and it's a first-past-the-post system, you need one candidate you can vote for, because there are plenty of others you would want to vote against. If you've got a whole choice of candidates to vote for, all saying roughly the same thing, then you're all going to lose. It's pretty obvious. And so we do need that serious, intelligent, recognized debate at a local level to make sure that we go into this immediate election campaign on that basis. The elections are going to take place for your party committee very soon. The nominations close the end of next week, and then we have the discussion period, and then we have the vote taking place, and the committee will be elected. At that point, we'll then have a structure, and we can develop the structure from then on. That is the important part of it. And my plea is that we work together with the independent groups all over the country that have done such fantastic work on local authorities. And we go into the council elections where they're being held in May of this year, determined to build council housing, determined to be a voice for regulation, including rent control in the private rented sector, determined to be a voice in planning decisions that allows council housing to be built, not property and land and buildings handed over to the private sector for yet more free market developments. For councils that are serious about environmental sustainability, serious about improving the lives of so many people, serious about doing something for young people in our society who grow up having so little, demanding so little and getting so little, but except getting massively into debt if they manage to get to university. That's why I was very proud in the general election manifestos I put forward to say that we would end student fees altogether and pay for education from the community as a whole, from cradle to grave, to show that we value education and don't see it as a commodity. And so these things are very, very important, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing. I'll have to finish in a moment because this wedding venue is going to do what it does, have a wedding. So I don't know if a lucky couple are in here at the moment, but there will be some along in a minute. I just want to say a couple of other brief words before I stop. The last week has been amazing and horrendous on the international scene. Venezuela has been under threat from the US for a very long time, that we know. It's had sanctions against it for a long time, that we know. And it had a US aircraft carrier on its coast for several weeks, that we know. They then went in and kidnapped the president and took him away. And Trump said, that's okay, I can do that because I'm the USA. It is a breach of every single aspect of international law. And it has to be condemned for that. And Trump went on to say he was threatening Colombia. He went on to say he was threatening Cuba. He went on to say he was threatening Mexico. And in his new national strategic strategy, he's saying that any country to the south of the USA on the American continent is fair game for the USA to take it over. Is it going to be Colombia next? Is it going to be Mexico next? Is it going to be Cuba next that finds it's got US soldiers on its land and its president taken away? These are extremely dangerous times. And the attack, or now proposal that they take over Greenland on the basis that they don't take it over, somebody else might, is an extremely dangerous prospect indeed. So we need to be mobilized on the international scene. I was over in Leeds this morning to speak at the Palestine rally, and I pointed out there that Imran and Richard Bergen and myself and a number of other MPs, particularly those in the Independent Alliance Group, have week in, week out, day in, day out, raised the issue in Parliament of British participation in the genocide by the supply of weapons and arms to Israel, by the diplomatic cover that Britain has given to Israel. And hang their heads in shame, those politicians that have defended the supplying of arms to Israel, knowing full well that acts of genocide have been committed, knowing full well that 70,000 people have been killed in Gaza, and when the bodies are finally removed from the rubble, we could be talking of 100,000 deaths. And there have been already 1,000 breaches of the so-called ceasefire agreement. And so our support for the Palestinian people is total and complete. Our recognition for Palestine is total and complete, and our solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza, the West Bank, and the refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria is absolutely there. And so mobilization and support is important. I often feel very frustrated. We go to the demonstrations, go to the rallies, and then you think, well, what have I done? Well, I've just been to a demonstration. Then you get a call from somebody in Gaza or the West Bank who just says, thank you for turning up, and thank you for giving us some hope that we're not alone. And so keep on, keeping on in support of the Palestinian people until they're free from occupation and able to decide their own future. It's not for us to decide how that future should be developed. It's not for us to decide how Gaza should be governed. That is a matter for the people of Palestine, not of us. It's our solidarity with the people of Palestine that's so important. and the other wars that are going on in the world, the disaster of the war in Ukraine, the killing of soldiers from both sides, conscripted soldiers, the use of heavy weaponry, and the only beneficiaries in all of this are the world's arms companies that make enormous profits out of the misery of war and the arms trade. And the grab of the raw materials and resources of Yemen, of Sudan, of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That is what the basis of all this is about. Surely we have it within ourselves to be something different. And so your party will be on the side of people around the world who are fed up with living in poverty, fed up with seeing their natural resources stolen by the rich and powerful nations, and are fed up with the endless wars that are going on. So let's not allow the rich and powerful to disempower us. Let's empower ourselves by a unity of coming together. Think back to those people in the 19th century, in mill towns all over West Yorkshire, who felt they had no power against the overwhelming power of the wealthy and the mill owners. They fought back. They formed trade unions, and they changed society, and it ultimately changed the world as a result of it. That is the situation we're in today. So let's make sure that we build that unity. And sometimes things happen unexpectedly. The election of Zoran Mandani in New York was a great fill-up to people all over the world that showed, despite everything that was thrown at him, he was able to win that election. The way people are able to fight back for justice within our society. We can fight back to win. We can defeat Farage and the far right. We can do it by a unity of all communities. We stand together, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, together for the kind of society we want to live in. We do not want to live in a society divided on all of that. That is our purpose. That is our job, and that is what I am determined that we will do. I want our party to be successful. I think we need to look at some of the structural issues. I think we need a leadership that's elected directly by its members and accountable to its members. That's a change we can make later on. And I think we need to have the loyalty of membership directly to your party in the future. These are issues that are going to come up in debate within the party. But what I just want to say to end this is, let us all get together to get our party back on track. Let us get together to say, we will build a party for the many. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you. Time is short, so I'm going to ask everybody, please, if they could vacate. Can I ask the independent councillors, please, just for one moment, to come and take a group picture with Jeremy? If we can all please make our way outside, and then we can...
Just announce our meeting on the 21st.
Yeah. Can I also, sir, can I also, just for, can I thank everybody who helped to bring on this event today? Mr. Rafiq, Harry, give him all a round of applause. It's Harry's birthday today. Happy birthday, Harry. Yeah. Yeah, can we all make our way outside, please? And Jeremy will be out in a couple of minutes. If you want to take pictures or selfies, please give us a couple of minutes with the independent councillors. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming.
Because it's £20.
Yeah. Let's back up.
Say the next meeting, Wednesday, 21st of January. Your party.
The next Your Party meeting is going to be 21st of January. Where?
7 o'clock, Hallfield Road.
7 o'clock at the Deaf Centre, Hallfield Road. Deaf Centre, Hallfield Road. Please attend if you can. Yeah.